What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the balance sheet. Got Billy and Raj here today. Very excited to discuss the goings on in women's wrestling again this week. Lots to cover, actually. Saturday night main event last night. WWE continues to highlight the women. Some signs of life in the AEW women's division on several areas, which we'll get into. And for fun, I guess, Raj thinks it'll be a good idea to ask me my feelings about the WrestleMania 32 triple threat match between Sasha, Charlotte, and Becky, and how that one all went down, which we'll get to later in the show. I'm sure I will keep very calm talking about that. But let's start with Saturday night main event. Last night, I know you got to watch the show. I did as well. What were your thoughts?
So, as an overall show, it was what I expected. It was very quick paced. Every match felt like the sprint against time. What I did like about the show more than a PLE or even a Raw or SmackDown is they didn't have too many of these commercials, vignettes, profile pieces that they do to fill time. I thought they were very efficient in how they got from one segment to the other. Um, Obviously, this is a women's wrestling show, so I will stick to those two matches. Let's start with Io versus Liv Morgan. So, as a fan of Io Sky, which I am, I was disappointed that she didn't win, but I was very happy with the match output. I thought both women were worked very hard. I thought that this was the best Liv Morgan match in I don't know how many years. Because Liv Morgan, who is a really good professional wrestler in the ring, has been told to be a character and to be an on-screen kind of, presence. Like more, she's like it's like be more AJ than be like a wrestler. But tonight or last night, she proved, hey, you give me 15 minutes and a match with a really good worker, I can hold my end of the bargain and the match is good. She won clean. There was no interference from Rhea, from Raquel, no interference from Dom. I thought that was excellent because I'm
Yeah.
tired of Liv Morgan matches being these overbooked finishes. I put out a tweet. I put WO plus MM equals IS. Will Ospreay plus Mercedes Monet equals Io Sky. And I thought about it last night, watched it. I'm like, Io Sky is the best wrestler in the world, male or female. And here's why. The style that everybody loves, or a lot of people love, which is Will Ospreay, Ricochet, gymnast, flip, backflip, handstand, roundabout, Io can do very well. The Mercedes Monet matches, which another group of people love, yourself included, the tell the story, work the body part, professional wrestling matches, she can also do, as she proved with the Bayley match, and then she did the gymnast spot match with Utami in Japan. So I think if you were to look at who can do both styles, who can do that better than Io, male or female?
Yeah, I mean, I saw your tweet and I was like, all right, living high off of a good Liv Morgan Io Sky match. I
Oh,
get it, I get it. But hear me out. I don't think Bret Hart could do a 450 splash. You know what I'm saying? I'm not
no,
saying he can't, but he never did. And I still don't think there was a better wrestler in the world than Bret Hart. So I think your point that she can do both certainly puts her at the mountaintop. I think that there's a level of excellence that is gotten to, I'll say, by a Bret Hart or by Mercedes Monet in just being able to suck you fully into a match, like all the way in. And there's that last 10 yards that I don't think most other wrestlers can get me to. Um, a select few where you just kind of like lose yourself in what's happening and you're just really like that athletic competition, the fight, the struggle, all that. I'm not saying EO isn't able to do that. Um, for me, doesn't do it as often as Mercedes, but it's a move. It's a weird. You know, In the sense of being positive, Io Sky is incredible. So if to me in wrestling, if you feel like someone's the best in the world and they have a resume like Io, I'm not going to tell you that you're wrong. Um, I have a different best in the world, but
Yep.
she's incredible, and I thought she was great last night. I'll tell you who the big winner was though. Was Liv Morgan.
Hmm. Yeah, I
Um,
agree.
if she has a bad or even mediocre kind of okay match with Io, it gets real loud on the internet about her in ring. And you know, when she was in Riot Squad and tag teams and really the first 5, 6 years of her career, she stayed on the main roster because she was good in the ring. I
Hmm.
mean, when things were not good for her, booking wise. She stayed in because of her selling, because of her ring work. She was a good hand, right? So obviously she's earned this character. You know, the character work's been very good for a couple years. I think she's earned this run, um, not only with the belt, but to just be a central character. But sometimes you just need a good match to remind the folks of what you're capable of doing. And you can't have a bad match with Io Sky and continue to say that you're great in the ring, right? So, um, big winner there. Not no one should be shocked. You know, she's good. She's always been good. And then winning clean. I think winning clean
Hmm.
over someone who you just said, you know, many people believe is the best in the world, one of the most versatile women in wrestling ever. Um, you know, you nailed it. Japan style, one of the best in the world. WWE style, best in the world. Maybe makes her the best in the world. You know, in some people's taste. So, um, you know, I did kind of think that there was a title change coming, and I know we kind of look ahead a little bit on this show. I just don't know what's next for her, right? Because I'm trying to figure it out. I saw someone say, "Well, now maybe she wins the Rumble," and as a fan, she's one of your favorites.
Yeah.
Even if she wins the Rumble, do you think she beats Rhea at WrestleMania?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot of that, this is Io's time to win the Rumble. It's the reverse story of her and Bayley, which is, she wins the Rumble after coming so close to winning the title and getting it. But if she's gonna fight Rhea at WrestleMania, I take it she's gonna beat Rhea if she wins the Rumble. We obviously know Rhea is the next program for Liv, whether it's on the Netflix Raw show, which is already an overloaded show to begin with, or is it the Royal Rumble, which is in Indianapolis, February 1st, or is it? Yeah, I don't know where they're going to do the match. I don't know what's next for Io. I'm not as confident as the internet that she's going to win the Royal Rumble, and the reason
I
is
agree.
Charlotte is returning, Becky is returning. Um, I mean, look, you actually brought something up a couple of weeks ago that I actually, from a reputable, what they call wrestling source, has said as a possibility, which is Stephanie Vacour wins the Rumble as a complete shock. And one of the reasons why she signed with WWE, like they told her, hey, you're going to win the Rumble. And we're going to guarantee it to you. Come on down. Well, if that's the case, who she fights is very like her versus Rhea. Hey, you got my money. That I'm not gonna argue if you're gonna do Stephanie versus Rhea. So I don't know what's gonna happen with Io. I really did think she was gonna win the title last night, and I thought it was gonna be because Rhea cost her the belt. But
Yeah,
and they did the shot on Raw where Io and Rhea lift up the belt together. So I'm thinking, okay, this is the direction at some point, and maybe it still is with the Rumble win. I loved the match, and I think you're right. Liv needed it. Like win or lose, Liv needed to have that kind of a really, really good match because
yeah.
she's very capable of it. She just hasn't had it in a long time. My only thing about the match last night, and it has nothing to do with the actual match, is if that match was literally set up to promote a Rhea Liv, like, was that stare down there because Liv is like, hey, I don't need Raquel and Dom. I can beat the best in the world on my own. So now I have the courage to stand up to you one on one. And you notice they had the face off and nobody interfered. They looked at each
Yeah.
other, camera cut away.
I think that was a storytelling beat that says we're finally going to get Liv actually fighting Rhea, and because to tell you what, if there's any more shenanigans in that feud, everyone's going to check out real freaking quick. I mean, this needs to be about the two of them only. I know she'll slam Dom at some point. That could be like the next part of the feud, but we need to handle the business between those two women. Um,
Yeah,
real quick, yeah. I mean, if Stephanie wins, she could actually still go for the NXT belt,
she
and that
could.
could be their way of making Julia Stephanie fit on the WrestleMania card in a way that
Yeah,
makes sense. Because obviously, Charlotte, when she won, went for the NXT belt
yeah.
against Rhea. So that's a possibility. Maybe EO wins Elimination Chamber. What it does tell me though is I don't know. There's a logjam at the top, and I do wonder if she's going to get a reign within the first half of this next year because the time would have been right now. Um, I don't think Liv Rhea needed the belt. We've talked about that for a while, so it'll be interesting. Hey, you know what? I guess us not knowing and it not being completely predictable is a good thing. I do just hope that EO gets, Royal Rumble, Elimination Chamber, singles match WrestleMania. I know she had one last year, but she's
Yeah.
continued to be great. So she's got to be part of that mix. But holy crap, you bring Charlotte and Becky back too. It's
Yeah,
crowded.
Charlotte, Becky. We still, I mean, obviously Jade is somewhere lingering because of her story, but the one. You talked about the whole Bret Hart can't, and I wanted to kind of retort and then talk about this match, but
Yeah,
I I agree that the way Bret Hart wrestled was what I grew up on and I appreciated, which is he told the story. It felt like a real fight, and he didn't have to rely on these crazy spots to get you sucked in. What I could counter with is there is a wrestling fan base that has grown up not really appreciating that style, right?
yeah,
There is a wrestling fan base that is more Will Ospreay, that is more Ricochet, that is more I guess EO, where it's like they want the spots to tell the story, not like the match story. So for today's wrestling, there are people who have written this that would 1996 Bret Hart work in 2024 WWE? Or would he work in 2024 AEW? Or would he work in 2024, I don't know, New Japan? But would he work?
yeah.
I mean, there's
I
an argument to be made he could, and there's an argument to be made he couldn't.
Yeah, I see it. I think Gunther's probably the closest, like
Yeah.
stylistically, just the way I think Brett would make it work. Um, Mercedes in that grouping, I think that's where her lucha style stuff that she's capable of doing is that 4.0 version of Brett, where she's not entirely ground based in submission and mat. She's got a lot of she does spots. It's just not quite that Ricochet level, right? She's got a ton
No.
of athleticism. We're gonna see it tonight, hopefully, because she's babyface tonight. We'll get into that, but the flying knees into the corner, that whole rally that she does, I love. Uh, real quick, man, I thought Liv was gonna do the. She had, they EO blocked it, but they almost did a homage to the Sasha Banks Asuka powerbomb mat spot from SummerSlam, I think it was. But Io blocked it, held the ropes, and
Yeah.
then did a dive. Really cool spot, but that is one of my favorite spots of all time. And Asuka is a G for taking that. That's there's just
Your poster behind you, as I point to on every show. I think one of the reasons that match is so revered is the two huge spots in that match are gymnast spots.
yeah,
She does the what is it called? The plancha over the top rope,
yeah,
right? The
over
forward
the ref.
plancha over the ref, and the reverse the reverse Karana, right?
Yeah, the
Spot.
Poison Rana. Yep.
The Poison Rana, where she does that, and that leads, Bayley does that, leads into the Bayley to belly, and it was the all-time. She ties the headband. This is her moment. So I
I
think
just got
that match,
goosebumps.
you
My
you have
favorite.
to say that the reason it works so well is they combined the new style of wrestling with the
100%.
storytelling, right? So I think that's why that match still. I mean, you can watch the match, like I've watched the match randomly, like on a lunch break. I'm like, I'm bored. Let me throw it on the TV above me, and I get sucked in every
Every
time, like
time.
I've never seen the match before. It is an all timer, and it's definitely the women's match I've watched the most in my life. So with the Liv Io thing, the one thing that Io is doing a lot more of now that she did a lot in Japan is she's doing the landing on her head spot, which she tried to do last night. When what is Liv's finishing move called?
Oblivion.
Oblivion. She tried to do it where she took it right on her head and falls
Yeah.
over. And look, I love Io, but man, I'm getting a little scared that she keeps doing that because that could lead to some real paralysis, real neck problems, real back problems. If I worked in WWE, I would pull her aside and said, "No, we don't need that. Like, you're fine. You're very over on your own. The crowd's super into you. You don't need to do that spot."
Yep.
But yeah, I thought it, and by the way, Speed Live is tough because Io need her right in the nose. Like
Right in the face.
that was a real knee shot, and the blood came out right away. And I was like, oh, I hope Liv doesn't have a broken nose. Because that was a vicious knee shot. And again, to the Bret Hart point, I'm supposed to make you think it's real, but I'm actually not supposed to hit you for real.
Yeah. Before we move on to the Chelsea Meechin match, credit where it's due to your point you just made. We've been saying for months that pay-per-view matches, the big matches, we're just not quite seeing that fire to go steal the show. And I'm not saying they stole the show, but props because Liv does come from that school of, especially with no interference and all that. You know that she told Io to lay it in there. You know, and the only reason for doing that, to be a sicko like that is to try to put on the best match, right? And to take have all these casuals that were hopefully watching last night take notice. So I really liked the effort that went into it from those two. Again, it's not shocking, but WWE has had a lack of executing on the big moment. This has been one of the greatest years in WWE women's wrestling history. The only thing that makes it not the greatest year, because the exposure, the amount of time they're getting, the only thing holding them back since Mania, the lack of huge great matches is pretty
Mhm,
astounding actually.
mhm.
Um, Mostly just Ross, like excuse me, Bianca and Io on Raw, but like on the pay-per-views, there's not one match that could have been the match of the night unless I'm missing something. And so that's kind of a feather in the cap that's been missing. And they went for it last night.
Last night was the closest I can remember where you can make a definitive argument that Io and Liv had the best match on the show.
Yeah,
But Bianca, Bianca Piper, those two matches
very good.
it would have been better served to be on a premium live event for the
And
company,
stole the show.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it would have
Because
been
even with
better.
like 2 to 5 more minutes on both of those matches, they go from like a 3.75 4-star match to like true like
Hmm.
4.25 solidly into that, category.
Yeah, I think
Um
Bayley Io was the last time I could definitively say the women had the best match on the show and in WWE. I mean, and that a lot of people would even argue that because of how the Cody Rhodes Roman Reigns match ended with, Cena
Right.
and Taker and Rock. But
The
I look at
Avengers
that,
ending.
yeah, I look at that as that's more theater than it was wrestling. So yeah, we did have history last night, and I
We
guess
did.
it's not a title change, but it's a first ever champion. So you had the finals correctly predicted here that it was the Chelsea and Michin, which it was. And we found that out on SmackDown. So before we get to the title match, let's recap the semifinals. So on SmackDown,
Mhm.
you had Chelsea versus Bayley, and you had Michin versus Tiffany. So I'm going to be honest here. I am a fan of all four women. I didn't think the matches on SmackDown were particularly great. I thought they were okay matches to tell the story they wanted to tell. I got to be honest, the Tiffany Michin match, I thought Tiffany tried way too many things, and
Yeah.
I didn't think it worked. She brought out moves that I don't know if I've ever seen before, or maybe I don't remember, but with Michin, I didn't think that was the style to wrestle. Like, I didn't
Yeah.
think, doing your cartwheels into power bombs into this into that, this was the match for it. She was clearly going to put Michin over. Great. That's what it should have been. Also, let's be honest here. She does the prettiest moonsault ever. She hit it clean. She didn't miss. She hit it clean. And she pretended like she missed and then lost. I didn't like that at all. I think that this is where, whether you love her or hate her, I give Mercedes all the credit in the world against Willow for changing the finish. Because
Yeah.
if you're on a broken ankle to then end up beating Willow, you do a lot of damage to Willow. Like when Owen Hart lost to Steve Austin, even though Steve Austin clearly couldn't move with
Right.
the neck, right? I thought that, when Tiffany hit the moonsault, I have to rewind it. I'm like, wait, she didn't miss the moonsault at all. And then they just get up and go right to Michin's finish. Yeah.
Yeah. For those who didn't see it, Michin was in moonsault position. She rolled inward to miss it. Clearly, that was talked about. You can't roll farther away to miss a moonsault. You'll just take the feet to your face or torso. So
Mm-hmm.
you have to roll in. So
And put your knees up, though. You got to put your knees up.
I think she was trying to miss it, right?
Yeah.
Which, whether that was a good move or not, you either got to put your knees up, roll in. I don't know if Tiffany was supposed to moonsault out a little further so that there's no contact, but it is a great point. Um, I'll even go back to Mercedes versus Asuka at Extreme Rules, where she slipped on the ropes and then she sold her knee the rest of the match. Io and Liv did it last night. Actually, Liv saved Io.
Yeah.
Io slipped on the ropes.
Mm-hmm.
What I presume was supposed to be a springboard into the knees from Liv, and instead Liv kind of just grabbed her and flipped her over, kind of a modified version. So, veteran wise, thinking on your feet, I think I think Tiffany and Michin should have sold. It's a tough spot, man. I don't know that anyone's kicked out of her moonsault. I don't know if Tiffany, got to realize she hit her and then like grab her knee at the last second and just make it seem like she like plunged her knee into the mat or something that distracts her from a pin. It's tough, but it does make for a clunky end of the match. I agree. Just didn't land the way that they wanted to. And as far as trying a lot of stuff, producers got to step in there. Tiffany's been wrestling what, 3 years, 4 years tops. Um, Pretty elevated on the card for how little time she's been
Mm-hmm.
around. I don't know what the dynamics are of Michin being able to say, "Hey, no, this," because Michin's been around. She knows being able to say, "Hey, this is a little, this is going to be messy. This is too much," but uh, the right result. But yeah, I'm sure everyone hoped for better execution on that.
Well, and I think Michin was in a tough situation both nights, which is against Tiffany, even though she's the baby face, Tiffany was clearly the one the crowd liked more, right? Because
Right.
Tiffany's very over and very popular. And then, we'll get to the US title match. again, she's the baby face, but she looked like the underdog when you listen, or the heel when you listen to the crowd. Um, Bayley Chelsea. So Bayley did exactly what you wanted Bayley to do, but one step before the finals, which was
Right.
she put Chelsea clean over, right? Clean as a sheet. She took the unpretty her and she lost. And there was no Piper Niven involvement. It was just Bayley lost. What are your thoughts about that match?
Yeah, so if you're going to tell me that Chelsea wins the tournament, and just based on what you just said about, and I agree with you about the semifinals not delivering, big missed opportunity, because I think Bayley Meechin would have been a fantastic semifinals match. And it could have been that they're friends, they go way back. It's a missed opportunity not to have that match. And then the dynamic with Tiffany and Meechin being off, Chelsea and Tiffany would have been one of those fun matches where, you got kind of like the comedy chicken shit heel,
Mm-hmm.
you've got the briefcase. Tiffany's kind of tweener between was a chicken shit heel, now is kind of starting to lean babyface. I bet Chelsea and Tiffany could have had a real fun kind of odd match, right? Something like you don't normally see. And then Bayley and Meechin would have had your classic kind of overcome and pass the torch match. But anyway, I I love Bayley. I She didn't make the finals. Uh, I think just being part of the tournament and being proud of, like, the first time ever, she tweeted about it and just kind of what those two women went through to get there, Chelsea and Michin. So I know she's proud. Um, I wish the match that she lost in was a little bit better. I saw with the Bayley fans on Twitter, it landed pretty flat, and I think
Mm-hmm.
it would have been a little bit different had maybe she lost to Michin. Um, but I think we really just got to focus on what the end result was, the finals, right? So I thought Michin was going to win until it became Chelsea Michin, and I said, okay, I think Chelsea's going to win. And in a vacuum, I they're both very deserving. I'm not a big fan of Michin just won a long-term feud with her like 35 days ago. And now she loses a more important match. That part I
Clean.
don't love. I said that last
Basically
week.
clean. Yeah, basically clean.
Yeah,
Before, go ahead.
go ahead. No, go ahead.
So before we get to the U.S. title final match, I want to talk about Bayley specifically.
Yeah,
They have a real problem. WWE, they always have. When it comes to Bayley, if she's a baby face and she's not chasing the belt, they really don't know what to do with her.
no.
She's just there. If she's a heel, then she has the belt and they know how to get somebody to chase her. And so they have told two amazing Bayley stories, as Bayley has been on both sides of the story. Golden role models, she got chased down and overcame. Io Sky, she was chasing, she won, and she overcame. They're great with Bayley in the story. When Bayley doesn't have a story, they don't know what to do with her. She is
Yeah.
just on the card. And, I think that for somebody as decorated as Bayley, a beating Bayley should be seen as a bigger deal than it is.
Yeah.
Um, I thought Chelsea winning pretty clean. If you're gonna do it that way, then I need to talk about how it's one of the upsets of the century and how nobody gave Chelsea a chance. And
And they missed it.
Jesse Ventura was on commentary last night. I thought, in my opinion, I've pretty much watched every single match Jesse has called on TV. I thought the best commentary job he ever did, 1987, Ricky Steamboat, Honky Tonk Man. Ricky Steamboat, Intercontinental Champion, lost to Honky Tonk Man. And he goes, Vince, you thought Honky didn't even deserve the match. In a major upset, he's the new Intercontinental Heavyweight Champion. What do you got to say to that? That's what I needed out of Chelsea beating Bayley. It
Yep.
just felt like Chelsea won the match, and there was nothing else to it.
And it's better
And
for Chelsea if you sell it that way too.
yeah, so I didn't like that. I wasn't a big fan of that. I think beating Bayley, who, if you list her resume on paper, there's a strong argument to be made that she is the most accomplished WW woman of all time. Rumble winner, Money in the Bank winner, defended her title at WrestleMania multiple times, which women do not do, won the title at WrestleMania,
EC Chamber winner,
EC
tag
Chamber
team.
winner. Yep. First ever woman to main event a PLE, right? Iron Woman. The definitive women's match, maybe, of all time. I mean, that's a pretty
Main event
damn
in
good
Survivor Series, right?
main event. Yes, main event in Survivor Series. Um, you can make the case. Had a match at WrestleMania with Trish and Lita. You know, she was a 6-person match and she faced them. So she's done that nostalgia thing. She hosted WrestleMania.
Yep.
Only Alexa Bliss and her are kind of the hosts of WrestleMania. She's done a
Multiple Hell
lot.
in the Cell matches.
Multiple Hell in the Cell matches. Hasn't won any, but okay, she's still been in them. And I mean, she's done everything. She's retained. I don't know if yeah, I think she's retained her belt in Saudi Arabia. Like she's done it all.
So
So to have her lose on a SmackDown, which is fine, but it needs to be presented as this is a big historic upset. Like they almost go into it, should have shown betting odds where it was like
yeah.
Bayley was a minus 1,000 and Chelsea was like plus 1,100 or something, because I think beating Bayley should be seen as a very big deal. And it just wasn't, it didn't feel like that.
Yeah, you present a interesting conundrum. As I sit here now, unless they come up, and they probably will, so don't panic, anyone listening who's a Bayley fan. I don't know where she sits on the main. I don't think she has a spot on the Mania card. She's certainly not going to be in the title matches. Um, does she get into a tag team and end up in the tag team match? Do they do a multi-women match? Does she end up in the U.S. title match? She could end up. I mean, they've got the transfer portal. She could end up on Raw and end up in something over there, but she's not going to get involved in any of the Rhea Liv EO business. Wouldn't fit. Um, she's not going to rematch Nia if Nia does carry the belt to there, which I don't know that she will. I think Tiffany will take it off of her before it. It's not going to be Tiffany versus Bayley because we've seen that match a bunch of times. So um, I don't know if maybe the best you could hope for is maybe Charlotte or Becky comes back and they do a fun one-on-one program with Bayley and one of them two, because it's to not put them in the title picture right away, which I think could be cool. But yeah, I don't know where she fits. Um, I don't know where she fits on the card. And I think she's earned the right to be on the card every year. The way you're describing her booking, who she's kind of like? Because she's a GOAT, she's a legend, she's a Hall of Famer, but she's never like, they don't know what to do a lot of the time. And she's like AJ Styles.
Yeah, that's good.
Always, when healthy, always going to be on the show, always going to be feuding with someone. God, AJ Styles has been in the WWE. People forget. I mean, we're going on what? Is it 9 years now?
Yeah. Oh, he
And
came
like,
back 2016. Yeah.
yeah, so he had that one really long run, but even that one was a little bit weird. He won it on a house show in London, right? Versus
Yeah.
Jinder.
Jinder.
I,
Yeah.
it's kind of like that. It's like they know they have a legend, but there's ebbs and flows of knowing what to do to highlight to your point, a lot of people have beat AJ Styles. They don't always make it as big of a deal as it should be, and I think they do the same thing with Bayley. You're right. Let's talk about
Uh,
Chelsea.
yeah.
Or no,
So
yeah,
So Chelsea Michin, they had a 9-minute match. It was not a long match at all. For the first ever Women's United States Championship, a
yeah,
lot of shenanigans with Piper. I thought the match was okay. We know these two women are capable of having a much better match. We've seen it. Like you said, maybe 35, 40 days ago with the dumpster match, which I thought was a really good match. And this match I thought was okay. You could make the argument for either person winning this match. Um, the risk you run with Chelsea winning, and I'm not going to take credit for this point. Multiple people put it up on Twitter, and I never thought about it until then. Is your first champion has been mostly a comedy act,
right.
right? So are you now saying that this is a comedy belt, or is it going to be a real wrestling belt, right?
Yep. So
So, yeah, go ahead.
no, to that point, it's important to clarify. Chelsea Green is putting together a fantastic career. She is
Hmm.
incredible. She was great in Japan, great at TNA, character wise, very good in the ring. Her normal watcher of the show, though, is not inside baseball. They're not listening to this podcast.
Hmm.
They don't know Chelsea Green's a legend. WWE legend is maybe a strong word, but like is putting together this really long resume thus far and could be a legend one day. But no one that watches WWE knows about her TNA run, right? Like
No.
they don't. And she was a great TNA champion, and again, some great matches in Japan. So we know Chelsea deserves a belt. You know she does. I
Yeah,
know she
I do.
does. People, anyone listening to this knows Chelsea Green is good enough to carry this belt. Your
Yeah.
normal viewer doesn't know any of that. So they know her as a comedy act that cheats to win. And that is the part that's problematic as the first champion.
Hmm.
Your casual, normal viewer thinks that, Santino just won the belt as the first champion because that's on WWE TV. That's kind of how she's been presented, and she's one of the best in the whole company at that role.
Yeah.
It's just an odd choice for the first champion.
I thought the move she did to get the unpretty her last night on Chelsea was fantastic. That was the
Yeah,
highlight
me,
of the
yeah,
match to me, where she's sitting on the top rope and did the whole flip and got her into it for the win. I also want to give a huge shout out to both her and Piper for the homage to Macho Man and Elizabeth. The famous, putting Elizabeth up on his shoulders with the title belt in the
yeah,
white dress, and Chelsea was wearing all white, and Piper kind of, did the exact same pose with Chelsea that Macho Man and Randy Savage and Elizabeth did. So I thought that was good. I'm curious to see where they go. It feels like we're going to get to Chelsea Piper, right? Like at some point, this title has to be Chelsea versus Piper for the breakup. But then my question is, you're already doing that with Tiffany Naya. You already did that with Bayley Io. So, is that the story to tell, or should it be Michin now is on the grind to get this title that she kind of felt like she should have been the first, women's US champion. I hope Michin gets a run with the belt at some point. Um, I think it would be a
yeah,
huge disservice to her not to give her the belt. But
yeah,
last night, as I predicted, Chelsea was super over. And that crowd wanted Chelsea to win. She did all the Zack Ryder spots. She tried to do a Rough Rider. They were doing the bro chants. I mean, you didn't know
yeah,
anything about wrestling. She felt like the baby face last night.
yeah. No, I thought the finish of the match was great. Funny, I just said the casual viewer doesn't know that Chelsea's great. That was a little
Yeah.
view into, oh man, she can really go because that move was cool for that casual viewer. Um, I do hope that she gets to wrestle a couple good matches with this belt where it's maybe not as many shenanigans and more um, her capability in the ring. Michin, I thought it was super interesting. She has to win this belt at some point in the next 6 months. Um, WWE has a long track record of delayed satisfaction, right? They don't
Hmm.
like the baby faces to win anything too early. Jey Uso, Sasha Banks, there's a whole line of I know you want this, but just wait a little longer and the moment will be bigger. So that I think that's what they're booking to. Um, you could do a title change on any number of the upcoming shows they have that could be important. Um, Triple H posted a picture with Chelsea with the belt, and he also posted a picture with Michin after the match. So that was to
Hmm.
commemorate the inaugural match. But I think she's earned more. I think Michin's been probably one of the unsung heroes of the division this year, as we've pointed out on the show for months. And probably wasn't the right place to give her the belt with the crowd being Long Island. You nailed that last week. You
Yeah.
really did. Um, so I think they just work it up to a chase, and I do think she wins it. And then maybe Piper wins it from her. But it's a perfect belt for the three of them because ideally they do good enough work with this belt that one or two or all three of them could be seen as a title challenger for the main belt one day. That's what these belts exist for. So um, hey, hats off to Michin and Chelsea. Both were very deserving of being in that match. I wish they were given more time.
Hmm.
Um, I knew as soon as we saw that card, man, it was even Cody and didn't have a lot of time. It was a jam-packed card.
No match went over, I think, 15 minutes. I think they had the shortest match at 9. Everything was in that 12 to 15-minute range.
Yeah,
It's what a Saturday night's main event card used to be like. But I don't know, like as much as they did the nostalgia, the old school ropes, the refs were wearing the old uniforms, the announce desk, and kind of in the middle of the crowd with Tessitore and Ventura. They did a lot of stuff for nostalgia, which was cool. But I think because we get so much wrestling now as a society, that a show like this doesn't feel overly special unless you do a major title change on it. It just feels like another weekly wrestling show that happens on a different channel at a different point in the night. But
yeah.
like the
It's like
old Saturday night's main events, you got matches that you never got on TV or on pay-per-view,
right.
or you got rematches. So, and it worked to do. There's another one January 25th in San Antonio. They already announced Jesse is going to be a part of all of these shows, so that's good. Before we get to AEW, there's a major, and I think major WWE development women wise, which is SmackDown. Bianca and Naomi were backstage. They wanted to talk to Nick Aldis. And Nick Aldis was like, Bianca, you're going to have to relinquish the tag belts. Jade's injury is a lot more serious, and we're investigating, but we don't know who did it yet. And Naomi steps up and said, hey, Bianca has never relinquished anything in her life. I'll step in for her. And then Bianca's like, yeah, Naomi's always got my back. And then they hug. And then you see Naomi's eye look this way. And it's like, there's your culprit. So
Yeah,
now it's pretty obvious that Naomi is the one who either paid somebody to take Jade out, which I'm still not 100% convinced that it isn't going to be Jakara and Lash Legend who took out Jade, but they took them out because of Naomi's
and Naomi's
direction.
the group leader. Yeah,
Yeah. And I think they will tell me where this is going on how Bianca and Naomi lose the tag belts. Is it Naomi turns on her in the match and lets the other team beat her and then is shown as, hey, I set this whole thing up? Or is it that they're the champs and Jade returns with the video saying, this is what happened to me, and it shows that Naomi took her out? Either way, it's so obvious now that it is Naomi behind this, and that Naomi versus Bianca might be your WrestleMania match.
If Naomi versus Bianca is a WrestleMania match for no reason other than one hates the other, that is huge growth for women, because that's the type of feud that men get for Mania, right? Oh, this
Yeah.
guy and this guy are too important to not be on Mania. There's no belt we can give them. Let's just do a hate feud, backstab feud, or whatever. That would be fantastic. I love it. We were talking about freebirding the belts anyway, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Months ago. I will say, missed opportunity though, and I get it. They don't want to get into the Sasha Banks deal. All Naomi had to say though, it would have been perfect to be like, step in. I also used to have that belt and I never lost it. So the two of
Yes.
us together, come on.
And I'm not
Because
convinced that she won't say that at some point.
she needs to say that, because it has nothing to do with Naomi gets to claim her ground to say, I was a great tag champion. I never lost a belt. They don't even have to say who her partner was. You just got to say she never lost a belt, because
Mm.
your character building her, especially if they're going to have a blow off, a feud and all that, you got to build, like, she's got a great resume. To your point, it's a little bit of the Bayley thing, right? Like, let them talk their shit and what they're capable of doing. I thought that would be a missed opportunity if they don't bring that up.
Well, I think they've mentioned Sasha Banks on TV several times since she's left. So it's
Yeah,
not like they're hiding her and they're being, they're trying to erase her from history and stuff like that. I really believe that they're going to bring this up at some point, that Naomi didn't lose the belts either. And I could be honest, what if Naomi brings it up after she costs Bianca the belts and says, hey, no one's ever really beat me for these tag titles. And I feel like I think I should be able to choose who the champs are. And I choose these two. I don't know. You could do a lot of different things with it,
yeah.
but I mean, again, when they did the backstage thing and then they hugged and then they panned the day, I'm like, okay, now they're not even trying to hide that she's the one who did it. They're
It's
not
going to be so good, though. I love
they're
it.
they're not doing a who done it. And I heard a lot of theories. Well, Charlotte took Jade out and da da da. No, okay. Here's why Bianca versus Naomi at WrestleMania is the perfect match for both women. Number one, Naomi has never had a singles match at WrestleMania. She has won the title at WrestleMania, beating Alexa Bliss in a six-pack challenge in one of the most convoluted women's title matches that you could ever go back and Becky Lynch was in that match too. It was not a great match, but she won the title in her hometown also. Number two, Bianca Belair has never lost at WrestleMania. She is Miss Wrestle EST Mania. Bianca Belair is not going to lose at WrestleMania for a while. They're going to do the Undertaker streak with her because they like streaks, they like records, they like merchandise.
Yeah.
Bianca Naomi is perfect for a multitude of reasons. Number one, Bianca's going to win, and Naomi could care less. Like, it's not like a Bianca Charlotte match where Charlotte just returns off of this horrific knee injury and she loses to Bianca at WrestleMania. It's like, oh, that's how you bring Charlotte back. Becky comes back. Hey, Bianca, my career kind of went down the tubes since you beat me at WrestleMania. You can't beat Becky so soon, but you can certainly beat Naomi, because Naomi did the dastardly thing. If she took out Jade in that manner,
She's got to lose.
she should lose, right? And
Yeah.
it keeps Bianca's streak alive. It keeps Bianca versus Rhea on ice for one more year. And clearly they have plans for Bianca with Bianca Charlotte, Bianca Rhea, maybe Bianca Tiffany. I don't know, but Bianca Naomi is a good WrestleMania match where Bianca wins clean, but has a feud, has a story going into it that people will be invested in. Everybody will love that match. And I actually think that Bianca and Naomi will have a damn good singles match if they're given time.
Yeah.
Naomi is a very good worker. She has proven that repeatedly. Look at her TNA run; she was phenomenal there. So I think this is the way to go. But again, the development to me on SmackDown was they're not hiding it anymore. There is no mystery as to who did it. It's like we all thought it was Naomi, but it was like, oh, she is stepping up for the replacement. Okay, she's the guilty party,
Yep.
and that's okay.
Um, no, it's that's what I'm saying is like I think we could get 4 or 5. I think we should get at least 5 women's matches on the Mania card. It'd just be interesting to see. Um, and to the point of bringing up the 6 pack, I know you're going to have a one-on-one on the Raw side. I could see the SmackDown being a convoluted 3, 4, 5, and that's how Bayley gets a match and all that. Because I love Nia. I think she's done a great job this year. Highlighted that she's been one of the best, heels in the business this year. One of the most dominant in the business, and I don't know that there's a singles match though, for her that hits at Mania. And Tiffany may have the belt by then, and I don't know that there's a singles match for Tiffany either. One of the things they've kind of done with Tiffany, fortunately or unfortunately, they've burned a lot of Tiffany matches. If you actually look,
Yeah.
she's wrestled almost everyone one-on-one in like Nia's stead. We got Bayley, we got Meechin. Like she's wrestled almost everyone one-on-one.
Tiffany should win the title and then switch shows. That's
Yeah.
what she would need to do. I think that, look, if Tiffany wins the belt quickly, like let's say she wins the belt next week, she cashes in, Nia and Candice are going for the tag belts against Bianca and Naomi. That is the first Bianca Naomi title defense. And somebody brought up a great point. What if Bianca KODs Nia? Nobody gets out of the KOD. Bianca Naomi retain. Candice gets in Tiffany's face. Hey, you cost us the belt. Tiffany clobbers Candice with the briefcase and then just looks at Nia, hits her with the briefcase, cashes in, wins the title. You get the TV moment. People go crazy. If Tiffany wins the title very soon, I do think there's a singles match for Tiffany, and it's against Io Sky. And I think that is the best showcase of Tiffany, unless it's going to be like a weapons match like she had with Becky, which is a phenomenal match in Bakersfield on an NXT show. I would love to see Io versus Tiffany because I think those two women. Now, I will say this: it will be Ricochet, Will Ospreay. That's what that match will be. It's not going to be Sasha Banks Bayley. It is going to be Will Ospreay Ricochet. They are going to gymnastics the hell out of that match. But
Right.
it could be a good showcase for both, especially for Tiffany.
It definitely could. Probably the most obvious one is, Charlotte and Tiffany,
Yes.
mother-daughter. But I think, well, to your point, if it happens quick and they have from January to Mania to build it, that's enough time. But I do think they won't shotgun that feud. They'll want to put some time and effort into that feud because that's her versus her, wrestling daughter. They're going to make a
I,
big deal out of that.
if Tiffany fights Charlotte, let's say they go that direction. So Tiffany wins the title, sets up her versus Charlotte at Mania. She loses to Charlotte. She'll win the belt back in Minneapolis at SummerSlam anyway.
Yeah.
She because Minneapolis is her hometown. She'll win the belt back.
Yeah. Although got a lot of good favor right now, man. I miss seeing Charlotte on the screen. I think fans are going to erupt when she comes back. I don't know if her winning over Tiffany within 2 or 3 months of coming back is going to endear
Yeah.
her to very many people.
Well,
I'm not saying she would win, but you know what I'm saying. Maybe she puts Tiffany over. I don't know.
I mean, Charlotte, Bayley, Becky, 6-woman match WrestleMania versus I don't know, fatal influence. I don't know, like, do you go that direction? I'm
Dude,
interested to see what they do with Becky and Charlotte when they come back, but
if they align them with Bayley and they align the three of them, going to fly to Connecticut and throw. I'm gonna drive my car through the front of the building. Like
Yeah, I know.
just wait. Like right
Just
in the middle of when there's no hope. Mercedes is, even if she wanted to come back to WWE, let's reunite them. A good 2 freaking years out from when it could even happen. I'd be so pissed because they had like a decade to do it, and they never even aligned three of them at once. Well, I guess Bayley, Becky, and Sasha were aligned-ish when they were all on Raw when Becky got punched in the face by Nia, but.
very famously in WWE, or infamously, they would say, in 1989, Barry Windham, Arn Anderson, Tully Blanchard were all in WWE with JJ Dillon as like a higher up. And on a random house show, it was a 6-person tag with those three against, I don't even know who the opponents were. And JJ came out to ringside just as kind of like a nostalgia thing. And it's like, you think about it, like, you don't have Ric Flair. So you can't really do the Horsemen without Ric Flair. In this same vein, though, because of how overexposed everything is, if you were to do Becky, Bayley, and Charlotte together, you're asking for the world to talk about Sasha Banks
Right.
because that's what will happen.
Free marketing.
She will be the star of that night because it'll be either where's Sasha or people will assume she's coming back.
People who aren't connected will be
Yeah.
like, oh shit, Sasha's coming back. They'll Google her and find out she wrestles elsewhere and maybe watch it. You know what I mean? So like, it's
Yeah.
probably not a good
But
business move.
but hey,
However,
Becky on an interview said she still thinks the match will happen or they'll be together on TV. Bayley said the match should happen one day in WWE. So it's like, do they know? Like, look, I am not going to go into wrestling innuendo or rumors or speculation. Everybody knows Mercedes is super happy in AEW. She seems to be having the time of her life. She has a smile on her face. She's excited. She wants to see that company grow. But anybody who knows anything about AEW, they usually do 2+1 contracts. They sign you for 2 years, and then there's that third-year option. Just saying. Now, speaking of AEW, which is a good pivot, it seems like the women are becoming a focal point on that show.
finally,
You're
yeah,
right. It seems like it. So finally, we had a women main event on
yep,
AEW Dynamite, which was Mariah May, the world champion, against Mina Shirakawa, which was the match. And she won the match
yep,
in a good TV match. I wouldn't say great, but good. And then we had the returning rocker Tony Storm,
right,
who, if you have been watching the TV after that, seems to think she just signed with All Elite Wrestling. And it's like she doesn't know. It's like Timeless Tony Storm. She doesn't even know that person existed. So is it she's Timeless Tony Storm playing rocker Tony Storm and she's still doing the actress? Or is it that somebody pointed this out to me? I wish I could give credit that she got curb stomped by
all
Paige
in
or
23, yeah,
Surya. Yeah. And from that point on, she became Timeless Tony Storm. And then she got pile driven by Mariah May, and that made her back to rocker Tony Storm.
yeah. I have to say, and I've seen a couple people not like it. If you could figure out something we haven't seen or seen a lot in wrestling, bravo to you, because it's almost all been done.
Yeah.
Um, I think this idea that she doesn't know she's been with All Elite Wrestling for 3 years is incredibly hilarious, um, super entertaining, and it has enough direction that it's worth telling the story. Is she faking it in acting?
Mm-hmm.
Is it really related to, the head? Uh, you know, Time I've ever seen anything like this in wrestling that I could recall on a main stage is Mick Foley. Do love Cactus Jack, Mankind, and who doesn't love Mick Foley? Um, and I wish he didn't have to put his body through so much of what he did to entertain us. But was always an incredible character on screen, and I think Tony is just right in her wheelhouse, and she's been
Yeah,
incredible. And I'm
she's
happy to have her back.
I I,
Main
I
event
love it. Go ahead, yeah.
main event match to your point was good. I hated that Mercedes and Anna had a little promo. I think at an hour and 48 minutes into the show that ended, and then Mariah and Mina come out an hour 50 minutes into the show. There's a little bit of an overrun. I think the match was 11 minutes. Um, I love having the women in the main event. That's great. You have a big return spot with Tony. But it's like you get one thing and you take two steps back elsewhere. You also can't go an hour 50 without showing any women, and just it hurts
Yeah.
the pacing of the show. That's my one complaint on it. But uh, you like the Tony stuff as well?
Yes, you brought up Mick Foley, Cactus Jack, Dude Love, but the story has also been done with Cactus Jack in WCW. In WCW, he got power bombed by Big Van Vader on the concrete and he lost his memory. And then they would do these odd vignettes where he was like homeless in Cleveland. And his wife would go to the street in Cleveland and be like, your family needs you, come home. And he's like, I don't know who you are, lady. Like he totally had a memory loss.
Right.
So where I love what they're doing with Tony, and a lot of people don't like it, I do, and I'll tell you why. The first time where her and Mariah made wherever they meet, where she goes, Mariah, I've been such a big fan of yours. I watched your
Uh,
stardom stuff. I'm so happy you're in All Elite Wrestling. You're the champ. When I wanted to come to All Elite, it's because you were the champ, and and it's gonna be so funny because she beat her for the belt. And so like the way Chelsea Green became so beloved with her comedy stuff because she was so good at it. Look, man, I'm not talking about in-ring stuff, but you're gonna be hard pressed to find a better character performer than Tony Storm in all of wrestling, whether it's male or female. Because my goodness, she did that timeless Tony Storm thing to perfection. I mean,
yeah.
the promos, the way she would talk to Tony at those press conferences, Wendy Richter, whatever. And now the fact that like she did the backstage thing where she's like, it was like I'm in a dream, and I'm sharing a ring with Mercedes Monet and
I can't. Yeah, I
Sheeta,
can't.
and I'm so, and then she's like, oh my God, there's Mark Briscoe over there. Hi, Mark. And it's like I'm laughing. I'm like taking this as total. I know it's corny, and I know there's a sense of wait, what are you? But let it play out. And I know it's AEW. I have been a harsh critique of their storytelling, of how they build to something. But with Tony Storm specifically, they have actually gotten it mostly right
Yep.
because you know, when Mercedes put in her newsletter, I was glued to my screen every week for Timeless Tony Storm. I gotta admit, I seeked out her vignettes on YouTube because she was so damn entertaining. And yeah,
Yeah.
the way she worked in the matches was not, but that was intentional. That was an homage to how they used to wrestle back then, and she's poking fun at it. Um, so speaking of AEW, so we got the return, and this is where now I'm going to be a little critical. Chris Statlander had one of the best women's matches in the history of the company with Mercedes, maybe the best. And she returns on a backstage promo, and it was hardly promoted. And then her first return match was on a Saturday show, going smack up against Saturday night's main event. I I don't know. Like, this
Yeah,
is where AEW loses me, which is, why are you not like giving me a vignette of how she persevered and how on one leg she almost beat somebody who's never lost in almost 2 years, and how the crowd was cheering for her and how gutsy she was. Like, why are you just randomly bringing her back and her saying, I have unfinished business, and Mercedes and Anna Jay, I'll be watching on Wednesday? That's it. Like, you couldn't
yeah,
bring her back after, we assume Mercedes beats Anna, have her come out
yeah,
or something. Like, I don't know. Like, that's where AEW lost me last week.
yeah. They went way too long radio silent with her, and maybe she did have a little injury or whatnot. I will say, if they're going to continue the Chris Mercedes feud, which it looks like I imagine she's coming out after Mercedes beats Anna Jay. Um, you have two definitive paths that you go down, right? If they wrestle again, has to beat Mercedes, or
Yes.
Mercedes has to really need help,
No.
like True Money Corporation gets
Hmm.
help, dastardly chicken Ric Flair, Roman Reigns. Like, I would not have won without the people around me. That's There's no other outcome. Mercedes cannot win clean if they wrestle again, in my opinion. But
No, I agree.
um, real quick, the Tony Storm thing has the chance to start creating a little bit of an ecosystem, which is what last week's episode
Yeah.
was about. Because you could start to tie together the women's programs, because she's gonna have a backstage promo with Mercedes, but it's gonna be so stupidly disarming. Like, there'll be stuff to backstage that's not related to a match or anything. There's going to be kind of like what the hell's wrong with her? There's going to be some good stuff that comes of
So
it.
what if they do this backstage vignette? They meet. Mercedes goes, Tony, the last time I saw you, we were wrestling in the other place on a house show. You just walked out. Where'd you go for 3 years?
And Tony goes, 3 years, that was 3 weeks ago or something. I don't know. Yeah, you
Yeah,
can play
or
with that
or
a lot.
or Tony sees Mercedes backstage and goes and says, "Hey, I haven't seen you in 3 years. The last time I saw you, is when we were wrestling at the other place, and I just left and I had to go." Like, she makes some reference to timeless. Like, she goes, "I had to go search for myself," or something. Like, it's like she actually hasn't wrestled since that house show when she left. Like, would they do that? I doubt it, but I'm gonna, in this specific case, I'm gonna wait and see before I judge,
Let it play
because
out.
I think Tony is so entertaining that when she cut that backstage promo, I was just rolling laughing. Hey, Mark Briscoe! Oh my god, I'm here with Mark Briscoe, and it's like, and even Tony Schiavone on commentary is like, Tony Storm is all elite, but doesn't that. And then they just went. It's like, because it's like she's disarming everybody, but how silly this whole thing is. Before we get to the WrestleMania 32 story, there is another big wrestling story in the world of women's wrestling that we have to cover. And we're always very positive, and we want to spotlight the women in a positive light. That's why we started this podcast. This might be our most controversial topic. So let me just get right to it. In TNA, for those of you who don't know, returned the polarizing and very controversial Tessa Blanchard. So Tessa Blanchard was in CMLL. She was one half of the women's tag champs. If those who don't remember, on her last night in CMLL, Stephanie McCoy did not put Tessa Blanchard over, won the match, and then went to WWE. Right?
Legend.
Did not put her over, went to WWE, and just said, thank you. Because apparently the rumor is WWE said, hey, we don't want you to job coming here. We want you to protect yourself. And however she did it, but she beat Tessa, then left. So Tessa is part of the tag champs. And she kind of did the same thing. She hasn't actually dropped those belts. She came into TNA in a mask, in kind of a black suit, attacked Jordana Grace, beat her up, gave her the one arm DDT, and then unmasked as Tessa Blanchard. And I mean, look, Tessa's indiscretions have been pointed out by several women wrestlers, that she was a bully, she was a racist, she was not a nice person, she was mean to most of her coworkers. And so when this all came out, at that very moment, she decided not to come back to the United States. TNA took the belt from her. She stayed in Mexico. She was married. I don't know about her personal life, but this is really the first time she's been back on American soil in a major American wrestling company, I think in 4 years. So if you
Yeah,
read the timeline, she's going to beat Jordana Grace for the belt, and Jordana Grace's contract is up and she's going to go to WWE, and this is her last program in TNA. She's coming to WWE. We've already seen her on NXT TV, so it's an easy sell to the audience. So before I give my thoughts, what are your thoughts about Tessa Blanchard returning to TNA?
yeah, I heard Jordan Grace didn't want to work with her. I don't know if that's
Yep.
true or not, but so here's the deal. A lot of shitty men getting airtime in wrestling. Like that they're bad people backstage. I try not to support any of them if I know, that that's how they are, and it's no different for Tessa. I I I just don't have interest in supporting someone like that. One, as an old white dude, it's not for me to forgive her. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not
Mhm.
my place to say, "Oh, it's in the past" or whatever. It's not. Um, I do choose to support people that, to the best of my knowledge, I think are good people. And this is not, people may have different views from me, and this and that and the other. It's not so much that, but if we've got some documented evidence that you're a shithead to your coworkers, that you are, have been racist to your coworkers, I uh, I'm not interested. I'm certainly not going to tune into TNA for it. Um, I don't need to boycott TNA because I haven't really been watching TNA that closely, except for a couple of the women that we want to be able to report on. But uh, you know, it's just I, I'm just not going to go out of my way to watch and support someone who treats people like that, and that's kind of my piece on it. You know?
Yeah, so I echo everything you say. And the other thing I want to point out is, Tessa Blanchard at her peak was known for these matches she did with men. And I'm just not big into intergender matches.
Yeah,
Um, I watched um, Lucha Underground on Netflix. I remember those matches with Io Sky and Penta, and those matches were hard to watch. To see, a man do those things to a woman, even though it was wrestling and it's theater and it's part of the story. Um, I've never been a really big Tessa Blanchard fan. Like, just to be
yeah,
honest, like I've never gone out of my way to order a pay-per-view or to seek out a Tessa Blanchard match. I know there was a time a lot of people thought she was on the level of Mercedes as a North American women's wrestler. I just never did.
yeah.
I never thought she was Becky. I never thought she was Charlotte. I never thought she was Mercedes, Bayley, EO. You can go on and on and on. I've just never been that enamored with her in the ring as a professional wrestler. Um, on top of that, the stuff that her coworkers said she did, which she didn't come out and deny either, by the way. She kind of said, "Oh, we all make mistakes in the past."
She
Um,
did that shit.
I don't. To me, it's like if I'm TNA and I've had this nice recent string of success, been selling out some shows, been on the up. I don't see the point of this move. And the reason I know that she didn't have a place in AEW or WWE, because she'd already been there. Like, if those two companies really wanted her back, they would have already had her.
100%.
I don't, like I said, I'm just, as a women's wrestling fan, I'm just not a I'm not a fan of Tessa Blanchard as a in-ring performer. Am I saying she's not good? No, she has her strong points, but her strong points where she can have a match with a man. And I just don't care for intergender wrestling. I want to see Rhea beat the living crap out of Dom, but that's a one-time specific thing because of how they've been setting this feud up. I saw
Yeah,
people say, you don't want to see Rhea versus Tessa? No, I don't.
I really don't know.
Because I'd rather see Rhea versus Bianca, or Rhea versus Stephanie, or Rhea versus Julia, or Rhea versus Io. Like I just think you have somebody who's at the star level of Rhea Ripley. Why would you ever want to do that to her by bringing in this person with so much baggage for what? So to me, my simple opinion on this is I don't really care. Like, I hate to say it like that. Yeah, she's back. If it's good for her, good for her. But me personally, it doesn't move me either way. I could care less whether she came back. I could care less if she never came back. It just doesn't do
Yeah,
anything for me. So
yeah,
those are
like
my
I said,
thoughts.
yeah, and I'm not going to sit here and rant about her being employed because there's a bunch of dudes
No,
who are crappy employed. I'm just not going to watch, just like I don't watch those guys. And I wasn't a huge fan to begin with. Some people might be. I don't know if they're trying to soft launch. If she ever gets back in WWE, it's going to be as a favor to Tully. You know what I mean? And it would be soft launched on TNA,
yeah.
for them to see you know,
I
what
saw
that
that point
reaction would
too.
be. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I saw that point too. Yeah.
before the finale of talking about WrestleMania 32, couple quick hitters. A return I was excited about this week was Shotzi's back. Looks
Yes,
like she's
on
going to get a run in
NXT.
NXT. Um, you know, Kind of the opposite of Tessa, in my opinion, from the point of view of got some real stuff behind her that is easy to rally around. Obviously just went through an injury herself. She's coming back from her sister, for those who don't know, has been sick. Um, and her dad and stepdad had passed away recently and all that stuff. So I really root for Shotzi. I think she's a really great character on screen. We don't know these people, but she seems like a well loved person behind the scenes as well, who's been through some stuff. So I only bring up the personal tragedy to say that her main roster run, I think she had a lot going on.
Mhm.
If you look back to when she was signed to NXT, she was thought of as someone who was going to come in, and she was a great in-ring worker. And I think we saw good in-ring work in NXT. It did not translate to the main roster. Again, I think there was a lot going on in her life that probably hurt that. But I'm happy to see her back in NXT, and hopefully can get her mojo back, because I think, it's great to see someone fulfilling their dreams, and you want to be able to, um, hopefully she can get back to the main roster one day and show more of what she did on the indie scene, what she was capable of out there. Um,
You think back, last year's War Games, Bianca Belair, Becky Lynch, Charlotte, and Shotzi were on the same
yeah,
team.
yeah,
So they had high hopes for Shotzi because, I mean, I got to be honest. Like, yes, in that foursome, she is by far the least accomplished and least thought of. But the fact that the company thought enough to put her in with those three as a teammate says that they had plans for her.
yeah.
So,
Um, we missed it on AEW a little bit. I do want to call it out. Willow and Jamie Hayter had a match last night. Willow won clean. Was clean, right? Julia came out
yeah,
after.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So they continue to, push Willow. I think she's just hanging around for that big moment, but kind of winning everything on the undercard and came up short against Chris and Mercedes. I still think she's the best person to give Mercedes her first loss. Um,
Well, yeah, okay.
yeah, and then it is a little surprising that Hayter is losing matches this early after coming back, but it looks like she's about to go into a program with Julia Hart, who attacked her after the match. So
Mhm.
giving AEW that credit. They got several areas of women doing stuff on the show. Thunder Rosa's kind of been lurking around Mariah and the Tony deal. So Mercedes has the match with Anna Jay on Wednesday. We'll see where she goes after that. And then non-AEW tonight, we get Mercedes Moné versus Hazuki. I
Mm-hmm.
am so freaking excited for that match. I love face Mercedes. I don't know that she'll go full face because Hazuki's going to kind of, we'll see what she does. Hazuki's not a heel like Momo, but those NJPW crowds love Mercedes, so it's going to be interesting to see how that match plays out if she tries to get booed and all that. So I'm
So
excited. It's going to be a great match.
when does that card start?
Probably 6 or 7. I'm just watching the main event. I might try to catch the other women's match, but
Okay.
football's on, But
Yeah, I
I'll
mean,
turn off.
yeah, it's the wrong day to have a wrestling event. I mean, because this might be the best day of football we get all year.
It might be.
There's 5 2:20. Okay, I say 2:25, but I got to do it on Eastern time. There's 5 4:25 Eastern start times, and this is the first time ever that they have done that, and it's not the last day of the regular season.
Yeah.
Where they purposely start every game at the same time so people don't rest players and all that stuff. But you have, in the history of the NFL, the first time ever in week 15 that you have 4 10-win teams and they're playing each other. And they're playing at the same time. Yes. They're playing at the same time, and they're both national games, which is Fox gets to broadcast Eagles Steelers to the whole country. CBS gets to broadcast Lions Bills to the whole country. And you can pick and choose, or like me, watch both games. You can watch either game. So they're not blacked out. There isn't any, even in Detroit and in Buffalo and Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, you can watch Detroit and Buffalo or Pittsburgh, Philadelphia. So this is the first time that you're ever getting that. And so the game right after that is a very important game to both of us. Green Bay, Seattle. There are some real playoff implications. If Washington loses today and Seattle wins, the Eagles are the number 2 seed at lowest. They can't fall below number 2.
Right.
If Green Bay loses and Minnesota loses and you guys win, I think you win the division. I don't know. I've seen different things about that because
Minnesota
don't
could
know.
still catch us, but they'd have to win out because they
They'd
play
have
us
to
the
win out.
last
Yeah.
week. But
So it's gonna be tough. So it's a big day of football, but I've already, I have the New Japan subscription, which I guess you can get this card on the New Japan World subscription. So I definitely will watch it at some point. It might be after all the football games, but we will definitely talk about it next week. So I put this out there on Twitter. I have a huge WrestleMania 32 rant. I was in the building in Dallas, Texas. I drove from where I live here in El Paso to Dallas, Texas to see that. It was actually the first event I attended as a resident of the state of Texas. I moved here in 2015. So that was really my first kind of road trip in Texas. And that was the first city I visited, while being a Texas resident. And, I really thought I was going to see Mercedes or Sasha Banks' crowning moment at WrestleMania 32. So, before I get into my rant, as a fan watching it at home, what did you think when you watched that match?
that was a poor enough decision that it actually kills a little bit of your joy for putting time aside and to watch wrestling. And if you trace back actually Mercedes Sasha Banks's words, I think that started killing something in her joy wise that manifested itself over the 5 and 6 years. And she said recently that she hasn't felt this way about wrestling since like 2015, 2016. And it was one of the worst decisions booking wise in WWE history, and I'll give my opinion as to why. Yes, WWE is hot right now, but they actually pretty much struggled. They lost money on house shows, and there's a lot of business things that didn't go well from early 2017 to the pandemic. The pandemic actually might have saved WWE. The way they were running their business before the pandemic was actually less ratings, less gate, less paper. It was all shrinking. People got excited to go back out after the pandemic, and so that helped raise the
Mhm.
gate, and then they caught fire on some other things. But one of the reasons why they struggled for 4 years is because they purposefully extinguished the flame of their hottest star. Sasha Banks would have been the top draw in all of WWE in 2016, 2017, maybe forever, if they would have properly crowned her at WrestleMania 13. And Vince knew this. And you know how I know Vince knew this? He knew he could not have her lose, like one on one. She would have never lost to Charlotte if it was Charlotte versus Sasha Banks. That would have been too much. But Becky, she says it in her book, politicking her way into the match. Sasha was supposed to win the match. If you go back and you watch the story, the
Mhm.
build, Sasha was supposed to win the match. It was supposed to be the crowning moment. Snoop Dogg was doing her entrance. Snoop Dogg is one of the three most famous people to ever be on WWE TV, right? And he might not be third. And she's related to him, does the entrance,
Mhm.
and Becky being in the match gave Ric Flair the out to say, "Oh, what if we extend the chase? You could have Charlotte win. She'll just beat Becky." And I think that this is the first time that Mercedes saw the business as very politicky. And you know, one of my favorite things about her is she wants to tell the best story. She had no problem losing to Bayley, got no problem losing to Bianca, got no problem losing when she should. The best story is the best story. And I think this was a time, and it extended to Hell in the Cell, where the best story uh, got Hulk Hogan, that doesn't work for me, brother. And she was on the negative end of that stick. And I think it scarred her for a while. It's why she's not still in WWE. She wins in WrestleMania 32. I guarantee you the things that happen after, she's still in WWE.
You said a lot, and
I did. I have an opinion on it.
you came from a perspective of somebody who watched it on television, spent your time, but financially you didn't make a big commitment because it was on the WWE network, which was 9.99,
Yep.
and maybe you spent 3 hours, 4 hours watching that whole card, but it's WrestleMania, so your wife probably already knew you were going to watch WrestleMania, irrespective
Right.
of Sasha Banks, possibly winning the title.
Yep.
I have a different perspective because I
Oh,
spent a
yeah.
lot more, yeah, because I spent a lot more money on this thing. WrestleMania tickets are not cheap. They're a lot more expensive now. They weren't cheap back then. I had relatively good seats. I'm on the what do they call it? I'm on the side of the hard cam.
Okay.
So where you have like the seats above where they have the hard cam, I was there, but I was in kind of the lower floor as they call it. And um so I drove, at the time I was married, we went to Dallas, Texas from El Paso, drove, stayed at a hotel, uh didn't do much of the WrestleMania stuff like we tried to do access, didn't really want to do it. So we were like, okay, we're gonna do WrestleMania. And the only reason I went was for this match. The only reason I decided to drive was for this one match, because that match had matches that interested me, but not to the point where I was going to spend my money.
Right.
But I did think there were some simple outcomes on that card that could have made the card a lot better if they just reversed results. But back to this match. So I watched the Hall of Fame the night before, and Snoop got inducted into the Hall of Fame. And he talked about his younger cousin, Sasha Banks, and their connection to wrestling. And they panned over to her, and she got this huge pop. And I'm like, okay, so she's going to win. Like
Gotta win.
they don't do this unless she's gonna win. Didn't know anything about Snoop having the musical entrance with her because being that you're at the city, you're like kind of do other stuff. You gotta do breakfast, you gotta do that. You know, you're with your wife at the time who's not a huge wrestling fan, but knows enough about it where you still gotta do some stuff she wanted to do before the card starts and see Dallas and all that. So I wasn't really on my phone. I wasn't getting updates. I wasn't looking at betting odds or any of that stuff. But the one thing that did give me pause that she was not going to win, the SmackDown before WrestleMania, she faced Charlotte one-on-one in Boston, and she beat her clean with a small package. So then I'm thinking, wait, if she's going to pin Charlotte on SmackDown, she's not going to win the title. No. She's not going to beat Charlotte. She's going to pin Becky.
That's what I thought.
Because up to that point, her and Becky had that match where they tied, and that's how it became the three-way where they pinned each other kind of. So I thought, okay, she's going to beat Becky. They're going to have a summer feud. Then she's going to beat Charlotte in the fall. And off to the races we go with her being the top woman. She's gonna go on the Today Show. She's gonna she's gonna be the face of the company. And I cannot tell you how I have never in my wrestling experience watching life been more demoralized by a single result than I was that one. That took the steam and the juice out of me. Look, I remember the rest of the show. I think Shane Undertaker happened. I think Rock came back for, I think, the segment with the Wyatts, and John Cena returned, and you had Reigns, Triple H. And I gotta be honest, like after she lost that match, I tuned out of the whole show. Like I did not care.
Yeah.
I was there, but I was a zombie. I was like, I could have walked home to the hotel and I'd have been fine because I was so mad. I was like, why did I spend my money? Why did I come here? I could have done so much with that money. I could have done this. I could have bought this, whatever. I could have saved it. Who cares? But like, she had Snoop Dogg walk her out and he wrapped her out and she wore the Eddie Guerrero tribute gear. And they talked about it on commentary after. I didn't see it live. Obviously, I was in the building. So I didn't know Michael Cole, acknowledged it. And JBL's like, Eddie Guerrero's one of the greatest of all time. And da-da-da-da-da. And I was just like, I watched this match. And the match was a really good match. I don't love it like everybody else loves it. Because my analogy is the ending sucked to me. So I can't love the match because the ending sucked.
Hard to rewatch a movie where the ending sucks, no matter how good the rest of it is.
Ric Flair's involvement was so unneeded. And I hated it. I hated the ending of the match. I thought they had some cool spots, like Mercedes, contorting her body in the air was tremendous. Charlotte doing the moonsault on both of them was nice. But I gotta say, man, it almost crushed my love for wrestling. That result, because it was so egregious and it was so bad and it was so stupid. And here's why it was stupid: she won the damn belt 3 months later on a Raw, right? Like she just won the belt on a random Monday Night Raw with the draft show, or what? Not the draft show, but the first of the new era of Raw, for a TV rating. Yeah. Like it was just it's
confounding.
I don't know. I've read so many different things about this match. okay, Becky's book shedded new light that I didn't even know. I didn't know Becky actually politicked her way into the match. I didn't know that. What I thought always was the story was Vince didn't want to beat Charlotte right away. And he didn't want to beat Sasha. So he threw Becky in the match to take her, to give her the spot, but to have her lose.
And right, and Becky got into the match knowing
Yeah.
she wasn't going to win,
Mm-hmm.
but inadvertently gave an out for Charlotte to win because Becky probably thought, "Oh, I'll get in the match and Sasha will beat me," and they were very close at the time,
And
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 she just
and
wanted
I
the Mania match.
yeah, and I read that Ric Flair, who has been known to be in Triple H's ear at the time and Vince's ear, brought it up like, hey, why beat my daughter now when you can have Sasha keep chasing her? Because that is the old NWA booking, right? You just keep chasing, chasing, and then you finally win. But the problem is the multiple times Sasha Banks won that title never felt as big as if she had won it at WrestleMania. The next day on the Today Show with Roman Reigns in a setting where she's dressed up with the belt, new face of the company. Roman Reigns is the new face of the company. He won the title for the first time at WrestleMania because people forget 2015 he did not win the title. He lost this, he got pinned by Seth when the famous cash in happened. So it's like you had this opportunity to say these are our new two faces of the company. And oh, by the way, that is exactly what Fox did when they got WWE. They made them the two faces of their program. But I just thought it was one of the worst. It really sucked the love I had for wrestling for a while. Like, I'm not saying I totally disappeared from it, but I never loved it like I did at that moment for a long time. Like, I went to house shows, I went to pay-per-views, but it was just like you took away her moment. And yeah,
The
you took it away from her, and I felt robbed as a fan. Now, I'm gonna tell. I have told this story on Twitter. I'm not gonna say his name, but you can figure out when I put two and two. You can put two and two together. So after that match happened, I went to go get a beer, and a very famous wrestling podcaster. He's not the observer, but he's the figure four part of that podcast. So you know who I'm talking about. And he was in the line where I was, and I recognized him. And I went up to him and I said, "Hey, what did you think of Sasha losing?" And he said, "I think that was one of the dumbest decisions I've ever seen in WWE. It sucked the life out of." He said, he pointed this out to me. I didn't say this. He said every single match up to that match had the wrong winner. But if she won, it would have brought the show right back to, oh my goodness, what a high. She got the fireworks. She won the title. She's the new
Yep.
champion. Okay, now let's get to the second half of the show. We could be excited about it. But he said it took the air out of my section and out of the building. It's like, ugh,
Yep.
what was that? Yeah.
The only way to fix it, and it's actually a great example. The only way to fix it would have been to actually have her chase next Mania and have it be the biggest moment at the next Mania. And the example I give is Cody. Cody was the hottest act in WWE when he lost to Roman. And everyone was like,
Mhm.
you can't have your hottest act lose. But they did it in a way where it was a 1 year storyline to come back around. Why didn't Sasha get that grace? Because she's a woman, because she's a black woman. I don't know. All I know is, however you felt about Cody losing to Roman, if he didn't come back and win the belt, you'd be like, that is sabotage to that character. That's what they did to Sasha Banks. She was the most over wrestler in all of WWE. And until she went blue hair SmackDown champion, she was very over the whole time. She was never we want Sasha over. After the WrestleMania loss, took it from an 11 down to like a 9. You know what I'm saying?
Much,
Like
much worse. Much worse.
When she won the title in LA and Pittsburgh, big pop, huge pop when she came out at Staples, but it was like a 9.
I was
And whereas
there. I was at
before
Staples Center. Yeah, I
it
was
it was
there at Staples Center.
yeah.
And she got a huge pop, but the match was really good. The match got a huge pop at main event. It was the first time women main event did a Raw for since Trish and Lita did it. Now they do it all the time. It doesn't matter. But okay, you bring up the Cody thing. I can't argue with you, but I will say this. I think what they did to Sasha was 10 times worse than Cody, and I'll tell you why. Number one, Charlotte Flair has never been as over as that Roman Reigns was when he beat Cody, right?
Very
So
true.
no matter what we want to say, Roman Reigns was the guy. I mean, he was the guy. Okay, he took the company. That bloodline story took the company out of, as you pointed out, less gate, less house show, less ratings, to hotter than the Attitude Era. Okay, so if he beat Cody, yes, I get why people were upset and Cody should have won and all that. But God, Roman Reigns was way more over than Charlotte Flair
100%.
ever was, right? Okay,
You're
number
right.
one.
Yep.
Number two, the crowd wasn't 100% for Cody to win. There was a lot of Roman Reigns fans. I was in the crowd at WrestleMania 32. Nobody other than the nostalgia pops, the Stone Colds, the Shawn Michaels, the Mick Foleys, the Rocks, the Cenas, and Stephanie getting speared got the pop that Sasha Banks got when she came out. When Snoop was saying, yes, yes, y'all, and then there was a little pause, and then she came out. If you go back and watch WrestleMania 32 on Peacock or YouTube or wherever the match is, listen to the crowd. I was in that crowd. It was way louder in the stadium because we forget that was in Dallas. That was in what they call Cowboy Stadium. So the acoustics aren't going to come across on TV because it's a big stadium the way it would like an arena. But I was in that crowd and my ear popped at how loud her ovation was. It was massive. Becky got a pop. Charlotte got a decent pop when she stood there with the fireworks. But Sasha's pop was bigger and louder than any men active wrestler on that roster, including Roman Reigns, including Dean Ambrose, including Brock Lesnar. There was a heavy percentage of that audience. There's a sign. Go back and watch WrestleMania 30 because I could see it from my section with my phone and I zoomed in on it. It said, I drove like 3,000 miles to see Sasha win the title. There was, if Sasha loses, we riot. It was, this is the Banks time. There was many Sasha Banks signs in that crowd. Yeah. And so I cannot tell you how I was almost done with WWE. Like I was literally like, I looked at my, now ex-wife, I said, it's over. I'm done. And she laughed. She's like, yeah, right. You'll watch Monday. And she was right. I did. But it was like,
it wasn't the same.
I was so pissed because it's like WrestleMania is where the stories culminate, not where they begin, right? Macho Man Elizabeth reunited at WrestleMania. Hogan and Macho exploded at WrestleMania. Hogan won the title back. Hogan Warrior ended at WrestleMania. Bret Hart won his title back from Yokozuna at WrestleMania. Like, that's what WrestleMania is supposed to be, where the stories come to an end. That's why the Roman Cody thing pissed so many people off. But it really didn't, because it was like Cena Rock. Rock won the first match. Cena won the next year.
Yeah.
Undertaker Michaels. Yeah.
Yeah. The other interesting thing about the match, you talk about the acoustics of the pop. If you go back and watch it, every time a bank statement or a pinning scenario, the later it got into the match, when you'd think, oh, this might be where Sasha wins, and it got broken up. Do you remember the groaning? There started to be a groan among, the crowd started to groan. You could hear it. Go back and watch it. You could hear the crowd kind of like, oh my God, she's not going to win. Because we all watch wrestling. You get deeper into it and something happens. And you're like, oh shit, if they were going to win, that would have been the spot they would have won. They're not winning, you know? Um, and it got deeper and deeper, and bank statement gets broken up, Flair, all that stuff. And it just, the crowd starts to feel, oh, this is not going to go the way that it should go.
So
Terrible.
the famous podcaster I'm talking about, he did point something out to me in the beer line. He said, look, all is not lost. SummerSlam this year is in Brooklyn at the Barclays. What if she didn't win tonight because she's going to beat Charlotte at the Barclays, where she loses to Bayley, and then the year later she wins it back in the same building and gets like the full circle moment? He goes, how would you feel about this loss then? And I said, okay, while I'm really pissed, because this was like 10, 15 minutes after the match, I'm really pissed that this happened. But if that's actually the story they tell, where she beats her at the Barclays, I can accept that.
Yeah.
I
And
don't love it, but I can accept it. It didn't happen either. She lost at the Barclays Center to Charlotte, right? So all of these scenarios to give Vince the benefit of the doubt, he lost all of them in 1 year. She lost at Mania. Okay, but she's going to win at the Barclays. Nope, she won on a Raw. Okay, she lost at Barclays because they thought legitimately she was injured, but she wasn't. So they said, okay, get back to her. October, Monday Night Raw main event. She gets the belt. Hell in a Cell, first ever for the women in her hometown. She's going to be Charlotte in her hometown. She's going to be, the cage is going to uplift, and then she's going to go on to a Nia Jax feud, blah, blah, blah. No, she loses in her hometown.
dude tripled down on the shittiest decision he ever made.
Okay. She beats Charlotte in her hometown in a Falls Count Anywhere match, which is probably of their matches the best match they've had. There's an Iron Woman match. She's not going to lose the Iron Woman match. Not only did she lose the Iron Woman match, everybody talks about one of the worst, I think, in my opinion, Charlotte Sasha Banks, Iron Woman Pittsburgh is the worst booked match, maybe of all time.
Mm-hmm.
Charlotte is the heel. Sasha is the babyface. Sasha's up 2-1. This title means the world to her. She's wanted it since a 10-year-old girl, or 15, watching Benami Toyota videos on YouTube. She's in the figure 4. All she has to do is wait 3 seconds in pain, and she wins the title. She keeps it because she's up 2-1. Charlotte at the buzzer, Sasha taps. It's tied 2-2. I don't know how much worse you could make a babyface look than what they did in that match. They made her quit at the end. Which hero does that? This was such a controversial thing. Not to me, I thought it was stupid. That an actual member of the WWE booking team, Lance Storm, DM'd me and said, hey, sometimes the good guy has to lose. And, the pain was too much for her, and you just got to let the story play out. I don't know if he worked for WWE at the time or he was about to, but he DM'd me and said I was blowing this out of proportion, that it's okay that she lost. I disagree. And I think, he should never be allowed to be near a book if that's how he's going to book. Number 2, the next night she came out and said Charlotte was just the better woman. I mean, I should have walked away at that point. I should have walked away and never come back. That was
We could
awful.
go. Yeah,
Awful.
it's the only big match I've only watched the one time. I've not watched it again. I won't watch it again. Um, if you look through wrestling history, they don't want the babyface to tap out in big moments ever, let alone under those circumstances. So it really did feel like sabotage. So now that you've opened up some wounds and put us in a great mood for for a day of football, uh, we'll get some healing tonight with a great
Yeah.
Mercedes Monet Hazuki match. But God, it's traumatic to go.
It
2016
was
was
awful,
just
man. I was
terrible.
like, people always get mad at me for complaining so much about WrestleMania 32. I was because I paid money. Like if I
You spent a
watched
lot of money.
like if I watched it on TV, like like you did, and she lost, I'd have been like, okay, well, I still have $3,000 in my bank account or whatever the price was, 4,000. I can't remember. But like this is why we do love wrestling because we get invested in the characters and we want to see them have their moment. Like when Bayley beat Io, I felt like that was like some redemption for Sasha not winning at 32. Like that's how good I felt about Bayley winning that match with Io because it was like, and Io did the job. Io put her over. That's what it should have been. That's how Charlotte Sasha should have been. And
Yep.
look, this is why I tell everybody if you have Bianca and Rhea ready to go next year, not this year, next year, don't deviate. Protect both of them where you'll get to that match. Because we thought we would get Charlotte, Sasha 5 different times at Mania. We never got it as a singles. They've actually wrestled each other twice at WrestleMania, both in multi-person matches. Both times Sasha came out on the losing end. She actually, the following year, I don't know how this is even possible. She was booked worse than she was in the Iron Woman match. She lost to a turnbuckle.
All right.
She
The,
she got hit into a turnbuckle that still had the padding on and lost. Like again, sometimes I can't blame her for leaving WWE because from 2016 and 2019 they didn't do much for her on the main roster. They booked her about as badly as you could book and fumble a top person. And to her credit, she was never not over, and that's what Becky Lynch even says in her book. When they talked about the three-way at I can't remember. No, it was when she returned at the Rumble and she kicked Becky out of the ring. Becky always said, God, that Sasha Banks was always so damn over. She was always over, no matter when she returns, how she returns, she always was over. Like people always liked her. That's a credit
yeah.
to her. But yeah, my goodness. I gotta say, like, yeah, like this opened up a lot of wounds, but this is why I do not hold WrestleMania 32 as even one of my 5 favorite women's matches of all time at WrestleMania. I don't, because
Out,
I can't, being in that crowd and remembering how I felt, then hypocritically say, oh, but I reviewed it and it was this. No, like I don't love that match the way everybody else does. I don't.
for a great match, the right winner has to win. If Sasha had won this match, it wouldn't be the greatest match of all time. It would just be a very good match. So,
Yep. Yep.
um, well, stuck with us this long. Thank you. Hopefully, that was somewhat cathartic for all the Sasha Mercedes fans out there. And again, knowing she's in a much better place, but it's interesting to deconstruct how we got here, right? Why is she the
Yeah.
one horse woman who's not in WWE? And a lot of it is the seeds were planted back in 2016 when they had every chance to choose her in a big moment and they chose the opposite. So um, appreciate everyone hanging with us. I would say good luck tonight. Are you rooting for my team? I'm pretty sure you're not rooting for my
I'm
team.
not
It's tough
rooting.
at this,
I
but we're
look.
on a collision
Yeah.
course.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look. Uh, Here's what I am rooting for in that game. Obviously, I'm not supposed to root for the Lions to win because the Eagles, if they have any chance at a number one seed, the Lions have to lose. But here's the funny thing: that's not the game they need to lose. It's the game against the Vikings, because even if they lose that game and the Eagles win, they have the same record, but the Lions still have a better conference record, so they're still the
Right.
number one seed. I want Saquon Barkley to win the MVP. Okay, like more than seeding, I want Saquon Barkley to win the MVP. The Philadelphia Eagles have never had an MVP. They have been an NFL franchise since 1933. They've never had an NFL MVP, which has to be some kind of record
I don't think we have
for a
either.
franchise. Yes,
We
you
have
have Barry
a
Sanders,
co MVP. You're right.
but he still won part of the trophy. My thing is Saquon Barkley winning the MVP would mean a lot to me. And the only way that happens is if Detroit beats Buffalo and Josh Allen doesn't have a great game. Because Josh Allen last week, I don't know how this is possible, got improved MVP odds for losing to a team, by the way, that Saquon Barkley ran out of the stadium, right? Like, if we're just being honest about it, Josh Allen lost the game, but his odds improved. Saquon Barkley ran for 255 yards, which is one of the 10 best running back performances of all time. And he did two 70-yard runs in the same game, which has never been done. And he ran the Rams out of the
That's
building.
not true.
Oh,
Barry
Barry's
Sanders
done
had
it.
had two 80-plus yard runs against the Buccaneers in
Did he do
1997.
it in the same game?
In the same game.
Mm,
The one is the John
okay.
Lynch jockstrap one where he just freezes them in the
Okay.
middle of the thing, and then the other one is up the sideline. Yeah,
Okay. Okay. So he did
237
it.
yards total for the game.
But yeah, but I mean, like that's the thing. Like the only other guy I could think who could do that would have been Barry Sanders. But like,
Yep.
I feel like Saquon has had this year where he's brought the running back into prominence, right? Like I think him, Derrick Henry, Jahmyr Gibbs, Josh Jacobs, and Joe Mixon have all made the running back position super important again, where the best teams in the NFL run the ball a lot. And I think that's cool. And I think Saquon has been kind of the head of that table, right? Because he's been the most popular player of the group, partially because of the team he plays on and partially because of what he's accomplished. But so to me, I'm excited to see Jared Goff against Josh Allen because, like Jared Goff has had a hell of a year. And look, you can make the argument if the Lions beat Buffalo on this big stage, Jared Goff should be in the MVP conversation. Like he should be
Yep.
top 2, top 3. This is not the game that I feel like I want to use my energy to root against the Lions because, again, even if you lose this game and we win, it doesn't really help the Eagles. It brings
Right.
us closer, right, from a record standpoint, because now if you lose and we win, just on record, we get the number 1 seed. But in terms of a conference tiebreaker, we don't. And look, you guys, I think you play San Francisco next week.
Chicago, then San Francisco, then Minnesota.
Okay. So you guys still have some tough games, and we have Washington and Giants and Cowboys, but like I don't, as an Eagles fan, I know I'm supposed to root against the Lions because of the collision course, but I've never found myself rooting against the Lions because it's not a team that I have mustered hate for. Like they're not the Cowboys, they're not the Giants, they're not the Commanders, they're not the 49ers, they're not the Packers. They're not teams that have, like, the Lions and Eagles don't have a rivalry. Like
Yeah.
there is nothing there, right? Like the most famous thing we have is the snow game, right? Like we have the LaShawn McCoy snow game.
You guys
So
did beat us 58-37 in the 1995 wild card round, but
yes, the Rodney Pete game. Yes,
yeah,
I remember that. And then,
58.
I mean, the only thing I could say about Lions Eagles is in 2022 when we beat you guys, 38-35, we had the big lead, you guys came back. I saw two things that day. I saw a team in the Eagles that could absolutely go to the Super Bowl. They did. And I saw a team in the Lions that I thought was the next team that we're going to have to pay attention to, and they're coming and they're going to be great, and they have been. So, again, I think what I'm hoping for today is just two really good football games. Last thing we'll close. A streak is going to end today in Philadelphia. There are two streaks going. One is Russell Wilson has never lost to the Eagles. He is 6-0, including being 4-0 in Philadelphia. That is because we said we were going to draft him and we didn't, and he has never forgiven us. Cool. The other stat is not since 1965 has Pittsburgh won in Philadelphia, which is crazy because in the 70s they were a dynasty. And
Right.
even in the Bradshaw dynasty, they never won in Philadelphia. which is crazy to think about, right? Like that team didn't win in Philadelphia, and the Eagles were not good either. So there's two streaks that are going to come to an end, and we'll see what happens, man. I'm excited for both games. I think it's going to be a hell of a day. And then we'll probably next week, spoiler alert, we will start with Mercedes and the New Japan match.
And we'll have the Anna Jay match. So the next time we record,
Yeah.
we'll have two Mercedes matches to talk about. So yeah, hey, let's enjoy some football. Appreciate everyone tuning in again, and go Eagles and go Lions.
Go Lions, yes.
All right.